My name's Lucy Downs and I'm the project lead for social franchising at IRIS-I. The IRIS programme aims to improve clinicians' practice in addressing and responding to domestic abuse. And it does what it says on the tin. So it increases the number of identifications of domestic abuse that take place in general practice, and it increases the number of referrals of patients affected by domestic abuse to specialist domestic abuse support services. When a clinician identifies that a patient is experiencing domestic abuse, this is recorded in the patient's medical record of the practice. It is possible to run a search on the practice system to see how many instances of domestic abuse have been recorded, but this is quite time-consuming for the practice team, so it's not really practical. Although very few patients will see a poster at the practice about the IRIS programme or pick up a leaflet or see information on their practice website and then refer themselves into the service, the vast majority of patients who are referred into IRIS are referred by the clinician who's identified that this patient is experiencing domestic abuse. So therefore we know that nearly every referral into IRIS that's happened is because of the good practice of a clinician in asking about and responding to domestic abuse. The IRIS programme in any individual IRIS site is delivered by an organisation that we call the IRIS Partner Organisation. So IRIS partner organisations are local specialist domestic abuse services. And as a matter of course, these services collect and record data on the source of referrals that they receive. So therefore it's straightforward for us and for the IRIS partner organisations to measure the number of referrals that they receive from IRIS trained practices. And this provides us with a consistent measure of success for the IRIS programme. It's also important, though, I think, to always keep in mind the people, who are behind these numbers. So for every one of the 20,544 patients who have been referred into the IRIS programme, these are all victims or survivors who've had the chance to access specialist advocacy and support that could increase their safety. IRIS sites vary hugely in terms of the number of practices and the patient population that the service covers in that area. And they vary hugely in terms of the number of IRIS advocate educators, who are the kind of key members of staff who are working with the practices and the patients. So it's difficult to directly compare the success of one IRIS site with another, because we'd expect to see that a large site with more practices and more patients and more resources receives more referrals into the IRIS programme. And broadly, this is true. But what we also see from the national data is that IRIS as an intervention is sustainable over time. And the broad trend is for increasing number of referrals in each area over time, which suggests there's no reduction of the value of the programme. So even very long-standing sites where the number of practices that have been trained has remained stable and not increased for many years, those sites as well show an increase in the number of referrals into the programme over time.